Welcome to your NFL Week 9 picks on the BLV. This is the live video where I pick each and every NFL game straight up and versus the spread every week of the NFL season. So if you enjoy these videos, make sure to spike the like button. And if for whatever reason you haven't subscribed to the Bottom Line View, make sure to subscribe. It's absolutely free. Stop being cheap. Subscribe to the channel. It's time for another week of NFL picks on the Bottom Line View. As always, we are live on a Wednesday night. We are live with a members-only chat. How do you get in the chat? You become a YouTube member of the BLV. And you can comment your picks, you can ask questions about the matchups, and give your opinion on whether or not I'm a fool or if I know what I'm talking about these NFL games. So, without further ado, let's take a look back at Week 8, see how we did, and then let's get to Thursday Night Football, which is a pretty compelling matchup, especially when it comes to the spread, because I know a lot of people are quite confused about that. First, let's say hello to Big Al. He says, "What's poppin', Mitch?" We got Caesar in the chat. "Good day, BLV Nation," he says. Stephanie is in the chat. "Hey, Mitch." And we've got Sing in the chat. "What's up, Sing?" Sing is going to have a few great picks. I know it. He always does in the chat. Let's take a look at Week 8. So, overall, we are 73-49 straight up. Our spread record is 64-56-3. Best bets, we went, I think, 2-3 last week. We actually nailed our top two picks, and our bottom three picks didn't do so well, partly because the Packers weren't able to cover by half a point. And yeah, not exactly, another week. The Jets let us down. I tried to fade the Patriots last week and it didn't work out. So, hey, I guess we won in some sense there. But last week versus the spread, we did go 9-7 overall. We did go 10-6 straight up. So let's just continue the winning ways in week number 9. And my best bets will likely be out for members tonight, for everyone else Thursday morning. I'm still deciding on a few of the picks. Like, I have it kind of narrowed down to a couple that I kind of want to go through. I've been working on it, last night and today. It's tough this week. There's a lot of choices, but I feel like a lot of them are at the same level, which makes it kind of hard to determine just 5 picks or, picking the right 5. I feel pretty confident about 2 or 3, but then after that, there's kind of a bunch of picks that are really, really competitive. So that's going to be the best bets later on. Make sure to watch that video. Spike the like button, and let's get started. All right, week number 9, Thursday Night Football. The New York Jets are at home in New Jersey, favored by 1.5 points. At home, the 2-6 Jets are favored by 1.5 over the 6-2 Houston Texans. That's right. That is not a typo. That is absolutely correct. And even when listening to other podcasts, there are people that are justifying this spread because the Texans do have injuries. The Texans have not exactly looked like the prettiest football team. And the Jets, for some, have maybe been a bit unlucky, including last week against the Patriots, where they were the only team since 1940 to ever lose a game in that way, shape, and form. So the Jets, you do wonder if they just cut their kicker and added a new kicker, what would their record be? Like 4-4 probably? If they just cut their kicker, Greg Zuerlein, who's their worst football player, and they had a different kicker, they'd probably be 4-4 because he missed 2 kicks against the Patriots. He missed multiple kicks against the Bills. He's missed kicks all year. He missed against the Broncos for a game winner. They probably should have won 2 or 3 extra games if they would have just swapped their kicker out. That being said, there's numerous injuries on both sides of the football. I think for the Jets, they have concerns with Elijah Vera Tucker on their offensive line. CJ Mosley, I think, will be out as well at linebacker. And for the Texans, obviously, Stephon Diggs. Their O-line seems to be in good shape. the rest of their offense, besides Nico Collins, who will return next week and not this week. So their receiving core is pretty thin. They really only have Tank Dell to rely on. But Robert Woods, Hutchinson, John Mechie, these guys are going to have to step up. Dalton Schultz. Defensively, I think they'll be without Al-Shaair at linebacker, which is a big loss. But they have shown, like even against the Packers, Neville Hewitt, who is that replacement linebacker, played really well in that game. They've been without Jimmy Ward for weeks. They did get Lassiter back last week, who's their CB2. On the other side of Derek Stingley, Jalen Petry's playing really well at nickel corner. So they have most of their pieces. I think linebacker's been a bit of a concern for them. And the offensive line just overall has been putrid the entire year. CJ Stroud, the reason for his lack of overall statistical production, in my opinion, has really been because of the offensive line. And when teams have been able to attack the offensive line of the Texans, they have struggled offensively. That being said, you have to ask the question, can the Jets do that? And I think the concern with the Jets is, can they stop the run? Can they stop the Texans from running the ball? The Pittsburgh Steelers ran all over them. Pretty much every team that they've played this year has ran the ball on the Jets besides the Patriots, because the Patriots can't run the ball. I mean, their O-line is terrible, and they just can't run the ball, except for in the red zone where Stevenson did have a couple touchdowns. But besides that, they really couldn't run the ball last week either. But I do think the Texans can run the ball on the Jets. The Texans ran the ball really efficiently against the Colts. The Texans have been able to run the ball even in games where their passing game has struggled, like in Green Bay against the Packers. So I think Joe Mixon will have another great game, which, by the way, it just so happens that Joe Mixon still happens to be very good at football. And it's funny because I feel like I've always been a Joe Mixon guy, and I started to doubt him the last couple of years because he looked a little bit slower. But it feels like that maybe has more to do with the Bengals than it does with Joe Mixon independently. And he's kind of seen a little bit of a resurgence as an elite running back in the NFL right now. I mean, there's no way around it. Joe Mixon is elite. If you're voting for a Pro Bowl, he's probably on your AFC ballot the way that he is producing right now. And in certain matchups, he's been carrying the Texans offense. That being said, when you compare both quarterbacks, I think both will have some pressure on them. Rodgers with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter trying to get him down and sack him. That's one of the best pass rushes in football. Meanwhile, Quinnen Williams probably had his best game I've seen him play all year against the Patriots. He looks better right now compared to earlier in the year. And then Will McDonald has been pretty good up and down. He's sacking quarterbacks. Hassan Reddick looked pretty lousy against New England, but he's also in the rotation now. So can the Jets get some pressure on the Texans? I think the best way to do it is actually by blitzing Houston, which I don't think the Jets typically like to blitz, so that's something to look out for. I do think Stroud's better at evading and creating off of pressure than Rodgers is. Rodgers can't move. Rodgers can't really do anything. If he is pressured, he can't manipulate the pocket. It forces bad throws by him. He throws too many throws off balance, too many inaccurate passes. He looks to get rid of the ball too fast when he's pressured. So I could see the Texans really getting some pressure on him if the Texans are able to slow down Breece Hall, which is probably like the biggest X factor matchup in this game. Is, can the Texans slow down the Jets running game? Because the Texans run defense has been a little bit more susceptible, certainly, than last year. And I feel like they're kind of middle of the pack as far as I would be concerned in terms of their run defense. Devontae Adams was Casper the Ghost. I almost said Gasper the Ghost or Coast. I don't know what I was trying to say, but Casper the Ghost against Christian Gonzalez last week. But I don't know. Maybe Stingley will match up with him this week. Does that mean Garrett Wilson has another big game? Garrett Wilson did have a great game against the Patriots. He saw some good matchups against Marcus Jones of the Patriots. I could see him having good matchups with whoever else they try to cover with in Houston, whether it be Lassiter on the outside or Petrie in the inside. DeMeco Ryans has also had a pretty good track record against Aaron Rodgers when you look at his days in San Francisco and how he was able to disrupt him and pressure him and make him uncomfortable in those matchups between the Packers and the Niners. I do think the Niners had a very good defense and very good personnel at that time, though, so that's something to consider. But you know, this is interesting because the Texans are certainly the better team. The Texans certainly are the better record. The Texans have the better quarterback. The Texans have the better defense. I think the Texans are the better coach team. It's a short week, but it's on the road. I have to take the Texans. There's no way I'm not going to. I would be a little bit, I wouldn't say concerned is the word. I'd be aware of betting this. It feels like this is a little bit of a trap, kind of like last week was. At least with last week, we knew that there was potential for returns for the Rams that made the line a little bit more reasonable, because it felt like the Vikings were poorly priced last week going into that matchup against the Rams, considering how each team had played. But then you considered Sean McVay, that preparation time. You considered Cooper Kupp coming back. You considered Puka Nacua potentially coming back. And nobody knew, except for maybe Vegas, how much Puka Nacua was going to actually play. And this week, it feels like, okay, what are you really backing with the Jets? You are backing a desperate team. You're backing a somewhat talented team against a team that maybe has some questions due to injury at receiver and things like that. You are backing a team that beat the Texans last year at home, but it was in a very rainy game in which, again, Stroud had no weapons to throw to, but that more so happened throughout the course of the game, not before the game. You also would say that the Jets are very poorly coached, and I think the Texans are significantly better coached. So, and I also look at a couple of matchups like the Texans pass rush against the Jets offensive line that I think is a big advantage for the Texans. So I don't necessarily see it the same way as last week in terms of a trap spot or a trap line. So I'm still going to take the Texans here because I believe in the quarterback more. I believe in the team more. I believe in the situational football more. I believe in the pass rush. And I think Tank Dell can still make some plays. I think Dalton Schultz can still make some plays. And I'm going to ride Joe Mixon in this matchup on Thursday night. I think they're going to run the ball. So I'll take the Texans to win, the Texans to cover. I don't think this will be a best bet, but that's the way I'm going to go on Thursday Night Football. Okay, next up, we've got the Los Angeles Chargers at the Cleveland Browns. The Chargers are favored by 1.5. This is on the road at the Browns. And I'm going to keep it simple, guys. I don't even care. I don't care, bro. I'm picking Jameis Winston. I don't care. I'm picking Jameis Winston. I just want to. I don't care. I didn't do it last week, although I said I should have. On the broadcast, I said Jameis probably going to win this game. And all of a sudden, I picked the Ravens. And of course, we did pick the Browns to cover. Okay. So that was a good move by us. But I'm taking Jameis Winston currently. If you follow my X account, the Twitter over there, at Mitch Milani. If you're not already following me, you can follow me at Mitch Milani, Milani. I tweeted my top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. Coming in at number 1 is Jameis Winston interviews. So, yeah. But there is a couple concerns about the Browns in terms of their injuries. JOK, I think, will be out for a while. Zadarius Smith did not practice with an illness. Maybe that means he's getting traded. I don't know, but he's a big factor. Denzel Ward has a concussion. I don't know if he's going to play. We'll see. There are concerns. Joel Bitonio did not practice. Now, for the Chargers, they also had some did not practices. Denzel Perryman at linebacker, Christian Fulton at corner, Will Dissly at tight end. Joey Bosa was limited. They have a bunch of receivers that could be back potentially, like DJ Chark and Quentin Johnston are limited. I lean towards the Browns. I think honestly, they're the more talented team in this game, and they're at home. And the thing I like about the Browns is I think their offensive line, last week they looked exceptional against the Ravens. This week they're going to be fully back. They've not really been fully healthy the entire year. I expect Joel Bitonio to play. I know I brought up that he didn't practice today. I would expect him to play. So I look at their offensive line. I think they'll be able to give Jameis time. I think their play action looked really good. Nick Chubb, I think, can run it a little bit. And Cedric Tillman, David Njoku, Elijah Moore all look really, really good right now. And their defense is still super talented. When you look at the Chargers offense, they just don't have a lot. I don't think the Chargers will be able to run the ball that well. Herbert played really, really well last week. I thought it was his best game of the year and one of the best games of last week for quarterbacks in general. So maybe he can carry them to this win with some exceptional throws down the field and some tight window passes. But the Browns defense is still really, really good, and it's in Cleveland. It's a West Coast team playing outdoors in Cleveland. I'm just not comfortable with picking the Chargers. I think they're a little bit overrated. I think the Browns are a little bit underrated. I think injuries might dictate this game, though. I wouldn't be shocked if the Chargers won if it just so happens that Za'Darius is out, Denzel Ward is out, JOK is out, all these guys are out. If that's the case, maybe lean towards the Chargers. But I feel like this is kind of an injury-dictated game. If the Browns mostly are healthy on defense, I'll lean towards the Browns. So this will be my pick. Okay, let's go with this. If Denzel Ward plays, I'm definitely in on the Browns because I think Denzel Ward might be the best corner in the league. If Denzel Ward does not play, I'll maybe lean towards the Chargers just because of Justin Herbert. And it feels like maybe as much as I love Jameis, he should have been picked off 2 or 3 times last week. Maybe that turns it on, maybe that turns a little bit this way this week. So I'll say Denzel Ward dependent. That's the pick. Za'Darius Smith dependent as well. If Za'Darius Smith can't play, he was like the best player on the field against the Ravens. He was like in the backfield every play of the first half. He's also a huge factor. So yeah, I'll say Chargers if Denzel Ward does not play, Za'Darius Smith don't play. If the Browns are healthy, I'll take the Browns because I do think they're actually the more talented team. And I think the Chargers are a bit overrated. They really haven't played anybody that's any good. I mean, honestly, their defense hasn't played any good offenses. I think the Browns offense in the current way it is, I think that, like, you look at the Chargers, we're going to keep deep diving here on this matchup, but the Chargers, you look at the Chargers schedule as I'm pulling it up right now. Who have they played offensively? Like, their defense is touted as one of the best in the league statistically. I mean, they played the Raiders, the Panthers, the Steelers, the Chiefs offense, which sucks, the Broncos, the Cardinals, and the Saints. The Saints didn't have their quarterback. The Cardinals, they're average on offense. They've had bad games. The Broncos are not a good offense. The Chiefs offense, we already know I think even the Chiefs lost Rashee Rice in that game, so that makes it even worse. The Steelers with Justin Fields, the Panthers with Bryce Young, and the Raiders in week 1. So, like, the Chargers have played absolutely nobody on offense. So, yeah, I mean, I think they're a little bit overrated. But the Browns, I want them to win. Let's just say that. I want them to win. I'm going to lean towards Chargers, though, if Denzel Ward is out. So that will be my pick. 1.5 doesn't even matter. Let's get to the next game. Chargers. Now we go Cowboys at the Atlanta Falcons. This is going to be an upset pick for me. I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys to win this game in Atlanta. I actually thought Dallas, I know that they got blown out in the third quarter last week, but I thought that at the beginning of the game, they actually showed some improvement on defense and some improvement overall. I thought they looked more aggressive defensively. They were more decisive in terms of blitzing. They will get Deron Bland back this week. I think they might get Micah Parsons back, which would be huge for their pass rush and their defense overall. Obviously, he's their best player. I think Atlanta is another one of these teams that I don't think they're that good, and I think their defense is ass. And I think Dallas can move the ball on them. This just feels like a Dallas win. When you actually look at Dallas has played really good football teams, and they've lost. They're just not a really good team, and they've been very beat up. So they lost to the Niners, who were desperate on Sunday night at home. They struggle in that matchup. That's not a good matchup for them. So they lost that game. They got killed by the Lions, who are an elite team, but also Dallas was missing like their entire defense. Okay, they beat the Steelers. They beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. They beat the Giants in New York on a primetime game when they had Andrew Thomas, and I think Dallas was injured in that game too. They lost to the Ravens, but again, the Ravens, the Niners, the Lions. Those are like 3 really good teams. And yes, they did get destroyed by the Saints, so that is kind of like their one black spot. But if you look at the Falcons, they've benefited a lot from playing against their division. Tampa, who should have beat them the first time. Tampa's defense is atrocious. And Tampa last game, they didn't have like their 2 of their 3 best players. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are really good players, and that kind of changes the game. You look at the Falcons, really, again, competition-wise, the last time we saw them play a team that wasn't Tampa, I think it was Seattle, and they got absolutely destroyed. And that was also in Atlanta. So, yeah, they played the Bucs 31-26 without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and that terrible defense that Cousins has ripped up this year. They played the Seahawks, in which Cousins actually struggled against a bad defense, an objective bad defense. They lost by 20 points at home. They played the Panthers, who are the worst team I've ever seen. They should have lost to the Bucs. They barely beat the Saints. So those are their last few games. And honestly, the Saints kind of should have won that game, to be honest. So I kind of look at the Falcons as pretty overrated as well. I mean, their defense, they don't have a pass rush. Their secondary, they do have a couple injuries. We could actually check that right now. I know that Simmons didn't play last week. Maybe he's back this week. Let's check. But yeah, I like Dallas, and the reason for is I think they can run it a little bit. Rico Dowdle should be back. That should give them a little bit of a boost. I think CeeDee Lamb should dominate this defense, especially from the slot and the middle of the field. I think Dak is due for a bounce-back performance. I think there's a little bit of an overreaction to Dallas because they've lost to really good teams. I think their defense is going to probably not be great in this game because they're not a great defense, but I think with their two corners out there, it significantly helps their pass defense, especially against a team that really only has two receivers in the Falcons. And then you look at the injury report. So Chris Lindstrom, I don't know why I said CJ. Chris Lindstrom did not practice with a knee on Wednesday. That's a pretty big injury. We'll see what happens there. We'll see with the Cowboys as well. I'm kind of hopeful that Parsons comes back, and I do think Bland will be back because they did activate him. But yeah, I just have a feeling Dallas is going to win this game. I just feel like this is a game that they win. I don't know why. Kind of similar to the Seattle game that Seattle beat the Falcons, where I was kind of on Seattle the whole week. So I'm going to lean into that. I'm going to go with Dallas. They're kind of desperate for this game as well. And I think if they win this game, they will be 4-4 and kind of right back into the race. This game might be a sneaky snoozer for the Falcons as well. So I'll go with Dallas +3, Dallas to win the game outright. We're going to go with an upset. Next up, the New England Patriots at the Tennessee Titans. I'm just going to be flat out. If the Patriots have Drake May, they will win. If the Patriots don't have Drake May, they will lose. That's pretty much what I'm going to say. I know that they won last week in a game in which Drake got hurt, but that's pretty much the pick because Drake May is their best player. Drake May is already really good. And the Patriots, here's the thing about this game, right? The Titans have the worst special teams maybe I've ever seen in my entire life. So I think New England can take advantage of that. If New England can, return a big punt or, switch field position against this defense. But my struggle with this is if Jacoby plays, I don't think that the Patriots will really move the ball against the Titans defense, because the Titans defense is legitimately good. And it kind of comes down to, can the Patriots on special teams be able to make a play? Like, can Marcus Jones have a big return or something like that puts him in position? Can they get a punt block, a field goal block, which New England special teams has been pretty good all year. I mean, they've had a couple bad moments, but for the most part, they've been pretty good this year on special teams, and we know how good Marcus Jones can be at times. So that's definitely a big factor. And in a game between two bad teams, special teams does kind of matter. So I would throw that out there. I think New England, from a defensive standpoint, I'm not really fearing Mason Rudolph. I think that Calvin Ridley should be locked up by Christian Gonzalez. That should be the matchup now that D-Hop is not on the Titans anymore. I think that Gonzalez should be pretty much strapping up Calvin Ridley the entire day. There should be no reason why anyone else covers him for the entire game. That's basically what they did against Devontae Adams, and I think it worked pretty well. The Patriots, their pass rush isn't great, but the Titans O-line, they're on like their fourth right tackle or something like that. Like their right side of their line is really bad. I think they can potentially get some pressure on Mason Rudolph. I do think the Titans can run the ball on the Patriots a little bit. I think most teams can run the ball on the Patriots, but I think if Drake plays, you're just flat out taking the better quarterback against Mason Rudolph. I mean, Jacoby, I would be a little concerned about them just scoring points. But if Drake plays, I feel like they can throw it a little bit. And the Patriots O-line, I do think has improved. I do think their O-line has improved the last couple of weeks. I thought they played pretty well against Jacksonville. I thought they played pretty well against the Jets, no matter who the quarterback was. And Hunter Henry's playing really well. Stevenson looks healthier now. That's good for the offense. I do think legitimately the Patriots are the better team, and they're getting points here. And I know it's on the road, and I know it's my favorite team, but I did rank the Patriots at 30 on my power rankings and the Titans at 31. I think the Titans kind of suck. Like, not even kind of. They are really, really bad. Both these coaching staffs kind of stink. I don't know. I'll just take, if Drake plays, I'll take Drake. He was limited in practice today. If Jacoby plays, I'll take the Titans. That's the pick, 100%. But I'll take the Patriots plus the points regardless, because I don't think Tennessee deserves to be favored by 3.5 against any opponent in the NFL. Like, no opponent. Not even Carolina. I don't know if Carolina should even be getting 3.5 against the Tennessee Titans. Big Al is taking the Titans, though. 21-16. Tennessee wins and covers if May doesn't play. Oh, but he's taking the Patriots, 23-17 if Drake plays. Okay. Durkant is taking the Patriots 20-13, and Singh is taking the Patriots 13-10. I don't like how everybody is taking the Patriots. Big Al is also taking the Cowboys 24-17, and Durkant's taking the Cowboys 28-24. Wow, Cowboys. And pretty much everybody in the chat except for Singh is on the Chargers. No, Singh is on the Falcons 28-14. Durkant is on the Chargers. Big Al is on the Browns. Okay, Stephanie's on the Chargers. All right, thank you guys for your picks. Appreciate it. Let's go to the next game, which is the Washington Commanders at the New York G-Men. This is a sneaky game. I kind of think the Giants might win this game. I don't... Maybe I'm stupid. I don't know, man. But this game, they played already, and they played in New York. I think it was week 2. And the Giants lost by a field goal, and they honestly should have won. They honestly should have won that game. Malik Neighbors dropped the ball on 4th down in like inside the 10-yard line or something, or on the way to score, let's say. I don't exactly remember. But they dropped the ball, and that's how they lost. I could see the Giants winning this game. I'm definitely going to take the 4 points. I will lean towards Washington to win, though. So I'm going to go Washington to win, Giants to cover. Daniel Jones always plays well against the Commanders. I don't know why, but he does. Now, there is a streak where Daniel Jones doesn't throw touchdown passes at home, so that's also kind of counterintuitive here. That being said, I was actually really impressed with the Giants on Monday night. They were the inferior team against Pittsburgh. They were 6.5-point dogs. I thought they should have covered, if not for a stupid Daniel Jones throw at the end of the game. I think that, the Giants had 5 sacks on Jaden Daniels the first time they played. I like their pass rush a lot. I think Ojulari is playing phenomenal. Hopefully he gets traded to a team that could use him. Dexter Lawrence is just unblockable. And Brian Burns is playing good, and their overall front is just really good. Their secondary is pretty bad. Like, they give up big plays, but a majority of the Commanders' offense is near the line of scrimmage, quick passes, yards after catch. There's going to be the odd throw down the field that Daniels might be able to connect with Terry McLaurin on, but I'll take my chances. I feel like this game's going to be close because I think Brian Daboll and this staff in New York is actually doing a really, really good job. I think the way that they protected Daniel in that game against Pittsburgh, the way they ran the ball with Tyrone Tracy, who's an absolute stud, I think he will play this week as well. I don't know 100%. He's in concussion protocol, but I do think that he'll play. I don't know. It's a divisional game. It's NFC East. The Commanders are kind of, you could argue they should have lost last week. They're coming off a really emotional game at the end there where it was Caleb versus Daniels. Daniels gets a Hail Mary to win the game. The Commanders have struggled in the red zone. They struggled in the red zone against the Giants in the first matchup, and they struggled against the Chicago Bears this past week. So that could keep the game sort of close. I also like how the Giants are running the ball, and I feel like Malik Neighbors and these guys on the outside, I like their receiving core. I mean, Darius Slayton's playing great. Wan'Dale Robinson's playing great. Like, if this team had a quarterback, the Giants would be pretty decent. I'm not going to lie. They would be pretty decent. They just don't have a quarterback that's worth a damn. So I think the Giants will cover, but I'll take the Commanders because they've been the more consistent, more impressive team. They're more explosive. I do think they should be able to run the ball on the Giants. And I do think Daniels will be able to make a couple plays with his legs and a couple big throws down the field to Terry McLaurin. I also think their defense, I like the way that they're switching up some of their blitzing schemes and things like that. I thought that was very effective against Caleb. Maybe they'll be able to fool the Giants offensive line without Andrew Thomas to be able to get some pressure on Daniel Jones and force some mistakes. But that's taking your chances against the Giants, right? Because I think Daniel Jones, if he can just get it out to Malik Neighbors, like if you can hit Malik Neighbors on a one-on-one, he could break that for a touchdown. So I don't know. We'll see how this game goes. I think this is actually going to be a really, really good game. Probably like the most low-key good game of the week. But I'm going to go Giants to win, Commanders to cover. Big Al says if New York wins, it wouldn't shock me. But he's going to go Commanders 26, Giants 20. Washington wins and covers. I don't trust Jones at home. Rob says this may also be the end of the road for Daniel Jones. If the G-men lose, I can see a switch to Drew Lock in week 10. I actually felt like Daniel Jones didn't play terrible against the Steelers besides really the end of the game, but, that's just my opinion. I love Drew Lock, though. He'd make them a lot more entertaining. There's no doubt about that. Durkan says Giants could have won game 1 if not for Neighbors' drop. Giants win 26-24. Okay, Durkan and I are seeing it similarly. Singh's going to go Giants 14-10. So a lot of people in the chat going with the upset, but Big Al and Rob are level-headed. They're going to go with the Commanders. Okay. Guys, we have 77 people in the chat, only 17 likes. Make sure to Gronk spike the like button. It allows other people, NFL fans just like you and I, to find this video, to support the Bottom Line View, and ultimately grow this community a little bit bigger and greater. So do me a favor, Gronk spike the like button. It's absolutely free. Let's move on to the next game. Where were we? This was the last one. All right. New Orleans Saints at the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are 7.5 point dogs. I'm actually going to check the number right now just to make sure I have the up-to-date number, but I think it's 7. It could be 7.5, so I'm going to have to make a decision on a split-second decision. The graphic for us is 7. Let's see. So I'm seeing 7.5. Maybe we'll go with 7.5. But yeah, the Saints are on the road at Carolina. Carolina does have one of the worst home fields in all of football, but it is a divisional game in a road setting for the Saints here. The Saints absolutely smashed them in week 1. It wasn't even a contest. It looked like an NFL team playing a middle school team. Derek Carr returns for the Saints. That's a big deal. Bryce Young will start for the Panthers. Andy Dalton's still out. Deontay Johnson traded. Best playmaker on the Panthers besides maybe Hubbard this season. So that's big. Adam Thielen, though, could be back. He did get a limited practice in. And Adam Thielen was Bryce Young's favorite receiver last year. So that could be a bit of a factor, I guess, to help replace Deontay Johnson. The O-line for the Saints should be more healthy than usual. I mean, last week they did get a piece or two back. That does help. But the Panthers O-line has legitimately been pretty good this year. It's mostly not been about their offensive line. I do think the Saints offense, though, should hum in this game. I mean, the Panthers have by far the worst defense in the league. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They can't tackle. They really can't do anything. They can't rush the quarterback. I think that with Carr back, he should have an easy game. That being said, his injury is not to be overlooked. That could affect potentially his deep ball or his arm strength in this game. That is something to look at. If he does, for some reason, not play extremely well, which he should in this game, that could be a factor because of the injury that maybe holds him back from being his best, 100% best. But I think even 80% of Derek Carr is probably an upgrade from the quarterback play they've had. Chris Olave should have another good game here, but without Rashid Shaheed, that definitely has had an impact on the Saints offense. They have not been the same offense since losing him. Alvin Kamara, though, I think will be the engine. I think they'll run the ball well. I think they'll run the ball efficiently. I think they'll control the game because of it. And I think Carr will be smart with the ball. On the other side, the Saints defense, I thought, played pretty well in the first half last week, but I don't know. Their defense has not been great. I do think the Panthers, Bryce Young should have time. Bryce Young should be able to move the ball a little bit, even without great receivers. Leggett has been pretty decent, though. I will give them that. At wide receiver might have been a good pick by them. I'm going to go with the Saints. I kind of want to take the points. I don't really know why. I don't know why I keep doing this and taking the Panthers with the points, because I just don't feel like the Saints are good. I'm gonna check the Saints injury report just to be 100% sure. But I do know that Carr's playing, so that might be enough for them to cover. I don't know if it's gonna be a shootout or not a shootout. I don't know if it's gonna be a blowout, because the Saints don't look good to me. Like, they look awful. They're one of the worst teams in the league. So Lattimore did not practice. Matthew, illness, did not practice. He should play. Cedric Wilson did not practice. Okay. Panthers, Clowney, not injury related, rest. Could he get traded? Aquanu did not practice. I guess that's a factor. Josie Jewell, rest. Okay. Adam Thielen limited. Tommy Tremble did not practice. Nothing too crazy. I guess I'll take the Saints. I don't really want to back the Panthers, so 7.5 could be tricky. I'm not going to bet this. I'm definitely not going to bet this. This is not the most trustworthy team in the Saints. So I'll take the Saints to win, to cover, but I don't know, man. The Panthers, if there is a game the Panthers can cover, it might be this game. So I'll just say that. Next up, the Denver Broncos at the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore is favored by 9 in Baltimore. Denver is in a big spot here. This is a game where they can prove themselves, because I think a lot of people, even at 5-3, are not taking them seriously as a AFC contender, as a AFC playoff team, because honestly, they have played absolutely nobody. They have played no one. Okay, Look at who they played. They played Carolina last week. We just talked about the Panthers are legitimately the worst team of all time. Like, I don't think people realize this. Like, the team that went 0-16 in Detroit, at least they were losing games because Dan Orlovsky ran out of the back of the end zone. You know what I mean? Like, the Panthers don't even come close. They don't even come close. Okay, but you look at the Broncos. They beat the Panthers 28-14. They beat the Saints on Thursday night in one of the most unwatchable football games you'll ever watch. Then they lost to the Chargers by 7. They beat the Raiders. Okay, who cares? They should have lost to the Jets. The Jets are also terrible. So they really haven't played anybody. It's hard to know how good they are. That being said, the Broncos defense has impressed me for what they've been asked to do and asked to accomplish. I do think the Broncos can get a pass rush against the Ravens in certain passing situations. Deontay Johnson will be new to the fold for the Ravens. I don't know how much he'll play, but he could factor in on a few plays. I think the thing that he actually does is he kind of unlocks Zay Flowers to play more in the slot, which I think is more of his actual role. So I think Deontay Johnson in the future, because he's more of a perimeter receiver, he'll be able to, run the outside route tree maybe a little bit better than Zay Flowers, and it will actually unlock Zay to be kind of like a middle of the field demon. So I'm looking forward to that with Lamar in this offense. And, like I've said for years, I mean, Lamar is at his best when he has middle of the field weapons. Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews, you throw Zay Flowers in the slot instead of Nelson Aguilar. I think that could be a big factor. The Ravens' run defense is excellent. Now, could they be without Michael Pierce? That could be a factor. Michael Pierce has been absolutely amazing at like 40 years old this year against the run. So that would be a factor. I'm going to take a look at the Ravens injury report. I do think that the Broncos offense, it's going to be tricky to figure out what their game plan will be, because they've been all about running the ball with Javonte and others, kind of like their Cance Madden team. But it feels like against the Ravens specifically, who have been excellent against the run this year, outside of maybe the last 2 weeks, uniquely enough, it feels like this would be a game they wouldn't be able to run the ball. And the Ravens are awful in the secondary. They're awful in their pass rush. They can't get a stop on pass defense. So you wonder, can the Broncos actually attack that? Because Bo Nix has not been very good. Bo Nix, majority of his completions are pretty short passes. It's not like he's chucking the ball deep that much, right? So it's kind of like, is this the perfect team for the Ravens to face on that side of the ball, where they need to run the ball They need to kind of throw it short. And with Roquan and Kyle Hamilton, that's the type of team that the Ravens defense should actually perform well against. You know what I mean? They won't have Marlon Humphrey, I don't think, which is a pretty big factor. Or he was limited, so maybe he will play. But Lamar also dealing with some injuries. Back and knee injury kept him out of practice today. I do think he'll play. I don't think that's a scare. I just think they're resting him to a certain degree. Travis Jones did not practice. He's been very good this year. Broderick Washington was limited. So they are dealing with Brent Urban also did not practice. They're dealing with some injuries on the defensive front for sure. The interior defensive line. So that's a pretty big factor. If maybe the Broncos can run the ball. Maybe they can. Because Matabike is the only healthy one. Brent Urban concussion. Is Washington healthy? Travis Jones did not practice. Washington limited. Pierce is on IR. So they had a lot of their big people are hurt. That's concerning, and Humphrey could also be out. So maybe the Broncos will be able to run the ball. But I think the ultimate thing will be like, can Sean Payton and Bo Nix come up with some passing concepts here to connect on down the field? Can Cortland Sutton make some plays against Brandon Stevens to kind of turn the tide and keep this one pretty competitive? I do think the Broncos have been good on defense, but they haven't faced an offense pretty much all season like the Ravens. They haven't faced a quarterback like Lamar. They haven't faced a run game with Derrick Henry. They haven't faced this dimension of explosiveness. And this is a big jump for a rookie quarterback to go on the road in Baltimore, a hostile environment, coming off a loss to a divisional foe. The Ravens will want to be buttoned up. This is the Ravens at 5-3, guys, right? They're behind the Steelers in the division right now. Like, they need to win this game. This is a very big game for the Ravens. So I'll take the Ravens to win, but looking at this injury report, I'll take the points. I think if the Ravens are missing some interior D linemen, I think that will allow the Broncos to run the ball a little bit better than expected. And I think Sean Payton is an excellent game manager, which should keep this thing within the margins. And I trust the Broncos defense to at least be competitive. I think Vance Joseph always does a good job in terms of selling out to stop the run. And with the corners that the Broncos have, I don't think they match up that poorly on the outside to kind of get away with playing man and kind of taking that chief formula against the Ravens, kind of like what we saw from the Browns. So I think the Broncos could stay in this game plus the 9 points, but the Ravens are definitely the better team, and they should definitely win. So Ravens to win, Broncos to cover. Next up, the Miami Dolphins at the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are at home. The Bills, I think, look like arguably the most impressive team in the NFL. I think in the AFC, as of late, they've looked like the most impressive team, not meaning their best, but in terms of style points and things of that nature, they've looked exceptional. I do think that the Lions in the NFC have kind of looked that way as well. The Dolphins, meanwhile, have just been an underwhelming team all season, no matter who the quarterback has been. The Dolphins are awful in Buffalo. We've seen this many years in a row. Mike McDaniel is maybe on the hot seat right now. I mean, fans are not happy with him. Durkant's not happy with him. He says Bills 200-0. Sell the franchise. The Dolphins defense, I thought, was the biggest disappointment last week. And now that Zach Sealer could be out, I don't think people realize how good Zach Sealer is. He's one of the best players on their defense. Calais Campbell could be traded at any moment. I wouldn't deny that. So if Sealer's out, that kind of exposes their run defense even more than previously. Their run defense is already bad, and James Cook tore them up on the ground in the first game in Miami on Thursday night. I think they'll run it again, whether it be Davis, whether it be Cook. I think they'll run it, which when the Bills run it, they're unstoppable because you give Josh Allen, easy third downs. He's rather going to run. He's going to hit Shakir. He's going to scramble, and hit Kincaid. They can go to Cooper now. They can throw a jump ball to Keon Coleman. If they're not in third, even on 3rd and long, the Bills can convert, right, because of Allen. But on 3rd and 2, they could just run QB power with Josh, and they're going to get it every time. So I don't know how the Dolphins get stops in this game consistently. They might get a couple, maybe a lucky turnover like Seattle did, but I just think the Bills' offense is going to be up and down the field against this defense. Ramsey's kind of washed, man. Like Holland's kind of beat up. I don't like this matchup for the Dolphins defense. And then on the other side, Tua has just struggled against Buffalo. I don't think that this is necessarily on paper the worst matchup for the Dolphins offense. I just kind of feel like they just struggle. I think McDermott knows how to play against Tua. He's very good at flooding those like middle of the field, downfield concepts that Miami is so good at. Those like play action kind of like post routes that they run all the time, or those crossing routes. They understand how to pass off and kind of like play against those motion concepts. They play a lot of zone, so they never really match up with Tyreek or Waddle one-on-one. They're always seemingly in the right spot. And then at the same time, the Bills, their weakness is against the run, but Miami has never proven to be able to run on Buffalo because all their running game is horizontal. It's not vertical. It's not downhill. It's not power. It's zone. It's outside. And that's the type of run game that Buffalo's good against. We've talked about this, right? When you just run straight at them, you can run it on them. But when it's horizontal, they're fast. Bernard should be back. So that helps their linebacking position. I think the Bills are just a beast right now. This isn't even like a slight on the Dolphins, who I think are probably like a below average to average team. I'm not really trying to hate on the Dolphins. I just think the Bills are really, really good. And I'll take them to win. I'll take them -6, especially given the historic content here and context. I will take Buffalo because they just beat Tua and they beat the Dolphins, especially at home, consistently. So give me the Bills to win, the Bills to cover. Guys, if you haven't already, spike the like button. We got Sal Boogie in the chat. He says, it's getting too cold in Miami. Excuse me, in Buffalo. Durkant says, Bodo, I love you. Bodo says, for once, Kevin, I agree with you. Big Al says, Bills 34, Dolphins 24. Stephanie is talking about the World Series. Stephanie, who you got in the World Series right now? Durkant says, Josh Allen might have MVP on lock after this game. Be prepared for a 4+ touchdown game. I definitely could see a little 2-touchdown passing, 2-touchdown rushing type of outing from Josh, but we'll see how it goes. He was at the Yankees, cheering for the Yankees in the World Series. Stephanie, I don't know how you feel about that. All right, next up, what do we got? Raiders and Bengals. All right, Raiders and Bengals it is. Bengals -7 at home versus the Raiders. I'll take the Bengals to win, but I'm leaning towards taking the Raiders with the points. Joe Burrow said that this team can pull off only 2 losses in their next 10 games or something like that. That he thinks they can win 10 games this year, which maybe they can, but I don't know. It's not looking like they can. They're 3-5. They're desperate. They're playing another team that's not very good. The Raiders, though, I will give them credit. They have played admirably. They have played hard. They have played tough. They have played gritty. I think that Burrow, obviously T. Higgins could be out. Expect Mike Gesicki to step up once again in that position where he was exceptional against the Eagles. I thought he was one of their best players. I think he could have a good game again. Jamar Chase, I don't see how the Raiders cover him. I do think Tyree Wilson, shout out to him, playing pretty well. The Raiders should have moments where they're able to stop the Bengals' run game. They're able to get to Burrow with their pass rush because I still think Crosby is a problem, especially against the right side of the offensive line of the Bengals instead of the other side. But I'll go with Burrow here over Minshew or O'Connell. Like it honestly doesn't really matter. Like I don't even know who the quarterback is. I don't care. I'm gonna take Burrow. I'm gonna take Chase. The Bengals are soft though. I think I need to make a video about them. They're soft. Their defense has been a little bit up and down as of late. I thought they played better against the Giants and the Browns, but again, that's the Giants and the Browns. They played pretty pathetic against Philadelphia. They just weren't up to the task against a tough football team in the Eagles. I'll take the Bengals to win, Raiders to cover. Raiders defense plays hard. Raiders offense, they've got a couple guys. Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers. They run the ball. They're physical, and the Bengals don't like to be physical. So Yeah, I'll take Bengals to win, Raiders to cover. Pretty simple. Nothing too much to analyze there. All right, next up, the Chicago Bears at the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona -1. Arizona is weird. They're 4-4. They're tied for the lead in the NFC West with like the entire rest of the division, but they're 4-4, and they've played a really hard schedule, right? You look at who the Cardinals have played. I'm going to pull it up. They have played arguably the toughest schedule of the season so far, and they have come out at 500. They have played the Bills. They lost to the Bills, but it was close. They destroyed the Rams, an injured Rams team, but they destroyed the Rams. They lost to the Lions by 7. They got destroyed by the Commanders, but the Commanders have been a good team. They should have lost to the Niners. They won. They were destroyed by the Packers. They beat the Chargers, and they beat the Dolphins. Now, when you look at that, I mean, is there a single game this year that they have played an easy team? Miami is not easy with Tua. The Chargers on Monday night at home is not easy. The Packers in Green Bay is hard. The Niners in San Fran is hard. The Commanders have been tough. The Lions have been tough. I mean, the Bills in Buffalo is very hard. So, like, that's pretty hard to me. Chicago, meanwhile, you look at their competition faced. Chicago, I mean, they've kind of benefited from playing some pretty easy teams. They played Tennessee, where they should have lost in week 1, but Will Levis, 24-17 Bears. They lost to the Texans, and honestly, the game wasn't as close as the score, in my opinion. The Colts, they lost to the Colts, and I think that was with Anthony Richardson, if I'm not mistaken. I think that wasn't Joe Flacco. I think it was Richardson. But they lost by 5 in Indy. They beat the Rams with no receivers, again, at home, outdoors, in Chicago, against an LA team. They destroyed the Panthers, who are awful. They destroyed Jacksonville, who are bad. And they should have beat the Commanders. Maybe. Commanders fans would argue no, but you could debate that. They lost by 3. I actually thought the Commanders game was one of their better games, maybe. But I do think the Bears are a better team. Like, I have them higher in my power rankings. But then when you kind of look at the results, you're kind of like, well, Arizona's kind of been like more competitive against good teams. Sure, they've been blown out. But the weird thing about the Cardinals is they're just very inconsistent. I think the Bears have been more consistent. This game is in Arizona, and when you think about the matchup, I think the Bears do have the better defense. There's no doubt about that. I would say, though, the Cardinals have a better offense. I don't think there's much doubt about that either. I think they have a significantly better quarterback. I think Caleb is one of the most overrated quarterbacks in football right now. The O-line for Chicago is straight up bad. The Cardinals O-line, I think, is kind of good. Not bad, maybe not good, but they're not awful, okay? Chicago should be able to run the ball on Arizona, but their run game isn't potent. I would say that Chicago has good matchups on the outside, but they weirdly don't use DJ Moore well enough. Like, I don't know why. Like, DJ Moore should be featured in this offense. He really isn't. I will give Luke Getsy some credit in Las Vegas. He knows how to feature players. Like, he featured DJ Moore last year. That was the right move. He's featuring Brock Bowers right now in Vegas. I think people overlooked how good Getsy was in Chicago. I said that last year. I think Getsy isn't a bad play caller, honestly. I don't think he's great. But is he the same as Shane Waldron? Is he better than Shane Waldron? He might be. I'm just going to throw that out there. Chicago's defense, though, is definitely the best unit in this game. Jalen Johnson should be able to lock up Marvin Harrison most of the time, but he's not really a guy that travels all that much. So if Harrison's on the other side, maybe he'll be able to make some plays against Stevenson, who's pretty inconsistent and probably, flaunting to the crowd or something, or taunting the crowd. I don't know. James Conner is due for another good game. It's been a minute since he's had like a dominant game. It feels like maybe he'll have a better game here. This is tough. I mean, this game could go either way. I was kind of pretty into Chicago early in the week because I have them rated higher. I feel like their offense has decent matchups against Arizona. on the outside, and I do think they'll be able to run it. And when the Bears have been able to run it, their offense has been much, much better. But then the Cardinals are at home. I do think the Cardinals can find ways to blitz Caleb and kind of get pressure on him that way. This is a tough game. This is kind of a coin flip, coin toss type of game. I'm going to go Chicago because I think they're better, but I don't know. And I'm going to trust Chicago's defense. I'm going to trust the matchups that they have against the Cardinals defense. But I don't love it, man. I don't love it at all. I don't think... And the other thing I will say is Montez Sweat is like the best QB container in the league. That guy is a fucking animal, bro. I don't know how... I've never seen a guy, especially against Jaden Daniels, win to the inside so frequently and then track down the quarterback. Jaden Daniels gets outside the pocket and then Sweat gets inside pressure, and he runs Jaden Daniels down from behind. That's just insane. You shouldn't be able to do that. So that should come in handy against Kyler Murray. I'll take the Bears. I don't love it. I'll take the Bears, though. You guys let me know who you're picking there. Sing's got the Bears 23-20. Stephanie's got the Bears 24-17. Bears 27-20 for Big Al. And Durkant's got Bears 23-14 because they might have the best defense in the league. Ooh, okay. I don't know about that, but maybe. I guess they're in the conversation. All right. Gronk, spike the like button. Subscribe if you haven't. We've got 79 people in the chat, only 28 likes. And thank you for the dislike. Appreciate it, man. That's so kind of you. Dickhead. All right, next up, we've got the Jacksonville Jags at the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles are favored by 7.5. Brian Thomas was expected to maybe miss this week, but then apparently it's only a chest contusion, so he might play this week. Come on. Give me an answer. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Is he out? Is he not out? Because that matters. Especially with Christian Kirk on IR, it matters for the spread. 7.5 is a tricky number. It's a Doug Peterson revenge game. It matters. Okay? That being said, Philly is the better team. Philly, I like how their defense is playing. I think Vic Fangio has really gotten these guys rushing the quarterback really well. I think they can take advantage of Jacksonville's offensive line, which has been trending in the right direction. But I think the Eagles are a different test for them. I think they can get interior pressure. I think they can cause Lawrence, especially without Kirk out there, to be his safety blanket, to be a little bit hit and miss in this game. And I think that the Eagles are just going back to old school Eagle ball. They're going to run the ball a lot. They're going to pick their one-on-one matchups when they get them. Jacksonville will certainly allow one-on-one matchups on the outside. That being said, Jacksonville is pretty fierce against the run overall, especially with Oluokun in there, who's been playing recently. Jacksonville's been playing well, though. I mean, they played the Packers well. They beat the Patriots after a slow start. They've been kind of turning this thing around. They're looking more like the team I thought they would be before the year. And perhaps the Eagles would overlook them. But this game is in Philadelphia. It's not in Jacksonville. I'm kind of scared of a Doug Peterson revenge game. I'm not going to lie. Especially against this jabroni Nick Sirianni. I'm not going to lie about that. I don't necessarily think the Eagles are just going to physically dominate Jacksonville. But I am concerned about the receiver injuries for the Jags. I lean towards Eagles to win, Eagles to cover. I lean that way. I don't love it. 7.5 is a pretty big number. I could see Jacksonville scoring. Their offense has been pretty good as of late, and they can run the ball pretty well as well. They've got pretty good balance. Tank Bigsby has kind of ignited their running game too. I could see something like 30-21 or 31-20, something like that. So I'll take the Eagles to win, Eagles to cover in this game. Next up, we've got the Los Angeles Rams at the Seattle Seahawks. Stephanie has Eagles 30-19. Big Al's got Eagles 34-17. Lock of the week. I like how our defense is playing, Big Al says. Lock of the week for Big Al. Sing's got Eagles 30-14. Durkant's got Eagles 35-28. Sing's got the Bears. I think I maybe said that already. And Durkant says Jags defense is chum. The Rams at the Seahawks. I like the Rams here, -1.5. They've had 10 days to prepare. Matthew Stafford with his receivers is a different level of QB. I think with Nakua and Kupp, he's a top 5, top 6 quarterback in the NFL. Sean McVay has had 10 days to prepare for Mike McDonald's defense, a defense that I thought last year the Rams actually moved the ball on in Baltimore, as well as any opponent I saw that last season. Kyron Williams can run the ball in this game. He ran the ball actually kind of surprisingly well against Minnesota. I think he'll run the ball well against Seattle, a team that can't stop the run. Seattle's offensive line is trash. They can't block. And the Rams' pass rush is actually kind of good. Jared Verse has been really good. Maybe the Hawks can make some plays in the passing game. Maybe they can be explosive on the outside. But I think there will be plays where the pocket implodes, and I think Geno goes down. And I think that could lead to pressure. I think that could lead to mistakes. The Rams have been very good in the red zone for the most part. On defense, it feels like they really make you earn offense. They really make you earn it. And what else comes to mind for this matchup? Puka Nacua is an animal. Nobody can stop this guy. Nobody can stop Puka Nacua, bro. So, yeah, I think the Rams are the better team. I think, yeah, Seattle's at home, but Seattle has been putrid at home. I brought this up last week. They got destroyed by Buffalo. They got destroyed by San Francisco. They got destroyed by the Giants despite the score. Recently, they have sucked at home. And the Rams are playing good football. So I'm going to back the Rams. I don't like how Seattle's playing. Maybe they surprise me. Maybe this is like 30 to 27 Seahawks. Maybe. It's possible. I just don't like how Seattle is playing right now, especially in the run game on defense and their pass blocking on offense. And I think the Rams can exploit that, especially with 10 days. So I'll take the Rams to win and the Rams to cover. Okay, that might be a best bet. Next up, the Detroit Lions at the Green Bay Packers. Rams 27, Seahawks 19, says Big Al. Bodo's got Rams 23-18. He says Seattle is horrible, 0 offensive line, defense not much better. Durkant likes the Hawks, though, with DK. Okay? Yeah, DK may or may not play. That is a good thing to shout out. He says, in a shootout, the Seahawks win 34-31. Everyone's going to be on the Rams. I like the Seahawks. Okay. Now, we've got the Lions at the Packers. Singh likes the Packers 30-23. This game's interesting. This is going to be a really good game. This is an NFC North clash. I think many would argue these are the two best teams in the NFC based on current play and could be the NFC Championship. It really could be the NFC Championship if the divisions stack up and the seeding stack up correctly. We'll see how that works out. But the Lions have been one of the most dominant teams in football as of late. The Packers have been winning, but they haven't been as impressive or as convincing. Now, I will say about the Lions, and Lions fans, again, are going to say I'm a hater. I'm hating on their team. Like, I don't know where the Lions fans get this from, bro. They're so emotional, man. It's really crazy. You would have thought, like, I don't know. I have a lot of Lions fans on my channel because I used to back them a lot, and I used to give them a lot of praise and love, and I'm just trying to be real with you guys, all right? Let's talk about the Lions for a second, okay? Have they not really benefited from a lot of injuries on opposing teams? And honestly, they've played some really good matchups for Detroit. Like, they played Seattle at home without, like, their entire defense, and they won 42-29. They destroyed the Cowboys without their entire defense. The Vikings game was competitive, and the Lions seemingly have their number against Brian Flores, it feels like. And then they played the Titans, who outgained them significantly, but they won 52-14 because of special teams and Mason Rudolph, basically. So that's kind of their recent games. They shellacked the Titans and the Cowboys on the scoreboards, and definitely the Cowboys overall. But I would also note that I don't think these are impressive as people think they are, just because Tennessee's terrible. Tennessee, that was mostly special teams and kind of turnovers. And then some of the other games were like, you're facing injured teams. So I really don't think the Lions have played an elite team this year. I don't. So I don't think they're this juggernaut that I think people are making them out to be. I'm just going to throw that out there. The Packers, meanwhile, are a bit frustrating because the Packers, they're winning, but something's missing. Jordan Love's a little bit too inconsistent for my liking sometimes. He's getting hurt too much. They beat the Texans 24-22 in a game in which they should have won 40-7. If you watch that game, the Packers should have won that game by 1,000. Somehow they only won by 2, and the Texans led with 2 minutes left. They only beat Jacksonville by 3, and it wasn't. They were leading big time, and they should have covered, and then they didn't. To my dismay, Jordan Love in that game did not look great. He was 14 for 22, 196 yards, interception. Trevor Lawrence had some big plays down the field. And then Malik Willis had to come in and bail them out at the end. You look at those recent performances. They did have a great game against the Cardinals, which is pretty impressive, I guess. But that's the Cardinals' defense, which is pretty bad. They beat a beat-up Rams team by 5. They lost to the Vikings at home. And they beat the Titans with Will Levis, the Colts with Anthony Richardson, and they lost the Eagles. So I don't think either of these teams are as good as people think, to be honest. But the NFL is just not as good as people think, I guess. The Lions, though, okay, so this is the thing. I think the Packers can move the ball on the Lions' defense. I think the Lions' defense, their pass rush is not there. It currently is not employed. They do not have a pass rush. So I think Green Bay will have time. I do expect Jordan Love to play. I do think that Green Bay should be able to, especially against man coverage that the Lions like to play. I like the Packers in those matchups because the Packers have a deep receiving core and they've got some talented guys that can really make explosive plays. Reed is tough to cover one-on-one. Watson's tough to cover one-on-one. Dobbs is tough to cover one-on-one. Wicks is tough. They all separate. They all have their own skill. Wicks is kind of savvy. Watson is really fast. Reed is really quick. Dobbs is really physical. So they all have their own thing, and it's hard if you're the Lions to do that. And I think they're going to have to probably blitz a little bit, which could leave them susceptible to big plays and explosives, which is the way the Packers like to play. I do think the most interesting part of the game for the Lions defense will be, can they stop Josh Jacobs to put Love in more of those second and third and longs? Jacobs and the run game for the Packers, especially with Malik Willis, has been really dynamic. But when Love's been in there, it's been closer to I'd say top 10, but not quite elite. The Lions run defense typically is very good, but without Hutchinson, it's maybe been slightly worse, I guess. You can run on them a little bit better. Pollard didn't have a bad game against the Lions, I would say. And honestly, the Titans move the ball on the Lions. They just, I don't know what to say. They have Mason Rudolph. They employ Mason Rudolph, and their special teams is awful. So I do think the Packers can score. I do think the Packers can move the ball. And then you talk about the other side. You talk about Jared Goff outdoors, which I think is the first game he's played outdoors. Jared Goff outdoors is not the same player. We just know this based on fact. Jameson Williams, don't know where he is. Don't know what he's doing. He's not playing. So a little bit of the explosiveness is taken away from the Lions. The O-line of the Lions and the run game of the Lions, I do think can control this game and run the ball. And I do think that will be the main proponent of their attack. I do think that St. Brown should also have a pretty good game because the Packers typically don't match up their corners with receivers. And I don't see Alexander moving from the outside to the inside. And the Packers CB2 and CB3s are just not very good. And you can throw against those guys. We'll see who else steps up for the receiving core, though. Khalif Raymond, Tim Patrick, Sam Laporta, who steps up there. Gibbs has been an animal. The way I kind of see this is the Lions are playing more consistent, better football overall. And so I'm going to take the Lions to win. But this is Green Bay in Green Bay with some good matchups on offense. And I think it will be close. So I'm going to take the points with Green Bay. They're getting 3.5. This feels like a field goal game. This feels like 27-24, 30-27. And even in a 3.5 line, this could be a backdoor cover for the Packers as well. Like the game could be 30-20 and the Packers could score a touchdown at the end and then they backdoor cover. So that hook is pretty significant as well. So I think the Lions are playing better. They're in better form and Love is a bit beat up. And I think the Lions can run the ball, which are all factors why I'm going to lean towards the Lions. But because of the current state of the Lions defense and because I think the Packers have a good offense and a good coach, I think they should be able to keep this one close. So Packers to cover, Lions to win. That's my pick. All right, Sunday Night Football. We have the Indianapolis Colts and Joseph Elite Flacco at the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings are favored by 5.5. They have had a 10-day preparation for the Colts. Obviously, they were on Thursday Night Football. They looked pretty good on offense for most of the day, but not good on defense. And the thing about the Vikings is they're they feel like a fluky team because they are like first in terms of most. There's a stat I saw. It was like they're bottom 5 in time of possession, and they're also bottom 5 in time of possession allowed. And typically, like teams that give up a lot of possession are not that good. You know what I mean? They're not at the record of the Vikings. And I think the Vikings defense has just not been able to play as well on the margins like they were early in the year in terms of sacks, turnovers, negative plays, red zone defense. Those are all things that the Vikings have really thrived on in recent games or early in the year, where against the Niners, they got multiple fourth down stops. Against the Texans, they got a bunch of turnovers early in the game, built their lead. But teams have been able to move the ball on them. That hasn't really been a question. It's more so red zone, fourth down, negative plays. That's what the Vikings have done on defense. Offensively, the Vikings are pretty darn good. Now, they're without Christian Darrisaw. They traded for Cam Robinson at left tackle. I think this is a good matchup for their offense because they have 10 days to prepare for a rather simple defense for Gus Bradley. Kevin O'Connell's a great schemer. He'll have a lot of plays to go to here. I could see Justin Jefferson having a huge game against these corners. There's just nobody that can cover him. And Bradley isn't one of those guys that just flat out double teams a receiver that much. And I think TJ Hawkinson could be back. Aaron Jones could have some success against a Colts run defense that's been a bit up and down, but more so down for most of the year. And I think because they'll run a lot of play action, that will protect their offensive line and protect Sam. And Sam was really good off play action against the Rams. I think he could have another good game there. And he's mostly thrown an accurate on-time football all season. Defensively, I think the Colts can move the ball on the Vikings. I think they can run it on the Vikings. I think Jonathan Taylor had a great game against the Texans. Joe Flacco is just a beast. And the Colts receivers are really good. Josh Downs is really good. Michael Pittman's good. Mitchell's pretty good. Alec Pierce can stretch the field. I think they're going to throw it probably 45 times, and that's going to keep them in the game too. So I'm going to go Vikings to win because of the preparation, because I think they're the overall better team. They have the better defense. They're at home. They're the better coaching staff overall. But I'm going to take the points because I like the Colts' Joe Flacco offense. I like Shane Steichen, and I do think there's a chance the Colts defense on the defensive line with DeForest Buckner there can maybe make a couple key plays to kind of force Darnold into maybe a mistake or a sack or something like that. So, I like the Vikings to win because it's at home on prime time, 10-day preparation, better team overall, but love Joe Flacco. Think he'll keep it close. See this as a pretty fun game to watch overall. Durkan says Vikings win an extremely fun game. Joe frigging Flacco nearly completes the comeback. Vikings 33-30. Big Al's got 26-21 for the Vikings. Minnesota wins and covers, but this may be a backdoor for Indianapolis. Appreciate the dislikes, homies. Don't forget to Gronk spike the like button and subscribe. We've also got Patreon, guys, if you're not already signed up. Patreon, link in the description. That's where you find all my bets each and every week. Let's get to the last and final game of the week, which is Monday Night Football. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs favored by 9. Chiefs to win, Bucs to cover. I don't trust the Chiefs with this big of a number to cover the spread, even at home against a terrible defense. We'll go over the reasons why. Kind of fundamental. Mahomes as a big favorite has not been good throughout his career. Baker's really good. So there's that. And I just don't believe the Bucs. I don't believe in the Bucs defense to win this game. I don't believe the Bucs have good enough skill players at receiver to win this game. But I don't think the Chiefs offense is explosive enough to cover a 9-point spread, even against the Bucs. And I just feel like the Chiefs will take their foot off the gas at some point in this game. That's just how it works. Okay. Now, the Chiefs will try to run the ball a lot or throw the ball short a lot. They're not a downfield passing team. I think that's how you beat the Bucs, is you throw the ball down the field. The Chiefs are not a downfield passing team. So I think that actually kind of makes the Bucs defense look better than it is. Because the Chiefs, and they don't run the ball out wide either that much. Maybe they can catch the Bucs on some reverses and handoffs and Mecole Hardman stuff and stuff like that. But with Kareem Hunt and not Isaiah Pacheco, they mostly just bludgeon you like to death, just right up the middle with their interior line. And given that the Bucs interior D-line is actually pretty strong, especially with Vita Vea, it's hard to run right up the middle on the Bucs. You've kind of got to run out wide. That's how the Ravens had success. That's how the Falcons had success, outside zone. The Chiefs don't run a lot of like outside runs. They don't get under center and like they just go in the gun and they just run power right up the middle. And I don't think that's really going to be that effective. D-Hop could make some plays here. I do think that the short passing game will breed the most success for the Chiefs offense, to Kelsey, to D-Hop, like the quick little passes, the RPO stuff. I think that will have success against Todd Bowles' blitzes, where they're hitting the vacated zones of these blitzes. And then on the other side, I just really like the Bucs offensive scheme. I think Baker is playing great football. I like how their 2 tight end formations and multi-tight end formations may be able to have success against the Chiefs, because that's actually the position the Chiefs struggle against the most defensively, is tight ends. Cade Otton looks really good. I think he should have another good game. And the Bucs have been decent running the ball, decent throwing the balls to the running backs as well, so look out for that. But yeah, I think Baker as an underdog is always somebody I like to back on the spread, so I'll take the 9, but I'll take the Chiefs to win. I think they should win this game. The Bucs are not on their level. The Bucs just are too incomplete of a team, too flawed of a defense in order to win. So yeah, Chiefs to win, Bucs to cover. And that is the final game. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, spike the like button and subscribe. Check out Patreon. BLV versus Consensus will be on Friday. Thursday night, I will be streaming for Texans Jets. My best bets will be out tomorrow morning for the public Thursday morning. Shout out to all the members that were in the chat. Durkant picked the Chiefs 27-21. Big Al picked the Chiefs 31-24. Sing like the Vikings in that Sunday night game. We do have some interesting games. Make sure to comment in the comment section below what your favorite pick is of the week, what your best bet is of the week in the comment section below. Thanks, guys, for watching. It's Mitch. Peace.